Hi, everyone. This is Brittnee Bond, and welcome back to the podcast. It's been way too long since I have been on here, and I'm very excited to be back with all of you, my lovely community, because you deserve to know what has been happening in my life. And I can't tell you how many times I wanted to make a podcast in the last couple of weeks, but it has taken all of my energy and more to stay grounded in this reality, with all of the craziness that's happening around me while on my trip. So here I am back in Berlin, my first day back, and I am so excited to share with you all the things that I learned, all the experiences, and all just the crazy stories that happened to me when I was in Egypt. Because I feel like if I can download to you even a portion of the things that happened to me and the vibrational upgrades that I received while I was in Egypt, I feel like your life will also be upgraded. And this is what we're here for, right? So just to start off with, like, I want to recap. I've shared in past podcasts, but I think it's really important for you to understand that, like, I felt such a strong spiritual calling to go to Egypt. Like, it didn't make any sense in this reality, like in this physical reality, because I'm very grounded in this, in my reality here in Berlin. Like, I feel really happy to be here. I have my community here. I have my soul mission here, to make the play parties and to do coaching and make courses. Like, I have my things I'm doing, and yet I kept getting such strong synchronicities, signs. I did a soul hypnosis right before I left Thailand, and it was like, you have to go to Egypt before you go to Los Angeles this summer. And I was like, okay, I'm going. I don't know anyone in Egypt. I don't know what I'm going to do in Egypt, or, what's going to happen. And also at the same time, I had many friends who have been there who were just like, be careful, Brittnee. We know, we know who you are, like me being my sensual, sexy goddess self. And we also know the energy in Egypt, which can be very, I'll just say, like, aggressive, maybe towards women, and chaotic and all these things. And also the fact that I am a highly sensitive person, as I think many of you also are that listen to this podcast. That's why you resonate with my experience, because I'm over here, like, doing the most that I can, enjoying it the best that I can in the world that is very loud and abrasive and not so soft, like, I'm just. Anyways, so I think the story starts before I even go to Egypt. And I'm also making this podcast for myself because I want to look back on this and, like, remember. I want to remember all the things, because I think there's something in life where they call it, like, there's a word for it. I think it's called episodic, which means, like, you just go through frames. Like, you go from one episode of your life to another without integration. And this is, a lot of people do this when they take a lot of psychedelics and they don't integrate their experience, and then they just go take more psychedelics. Well, if you have a really intense experience in your life, it can have the same vibrational upgrades as psychedelics, and it's really important to integrate. So for me, making this podcast is part of that. Anyway, so I came to Europe knowing that I wanted to go to Egypt, not knowing anyone in Egypt, not understanding what I'm going to do in Egypt, blah, blah, blah. And then one of my first weeks here in Berlin, I went to a party. I was super tired this night, and a friend of mine was like, come to this party. I think you're going to have fun. It's really cool people. And I go there and I end up meeting a man who became a really good friend of mine. And he is Egyptian. And he already was planning to go back to Egypt. And so I said to him, like, I also was planning to go to Egypt. And he was like, okay, well, if you want to go together, we can go together. And I thought about it for a while, and we kept, our friendship going. And then I was like, yeah, actually, this is a fuck yes. Let's go. So we made a plan, and we went. And as I was starting to figure out, like, that I was, like, as I was confirming within my psyche that I'm going to Egypt, I started to make a plan of, like, spiritually what I needed to do there. And the two things that I really wanted to do when I was in Egypt was go to the pyramids in Cairo, and then go down to the Temple of Isis. And Something to understand about Egypt is that things are very far apart. Like Egypt is super big geographically. So to go from Cairo to the Temple of Isis, I think that's about a 10-hour drive. Um, so let's just start with the journey of what happened. Him and I arrive in the airport in a place called Hurghada, which is the Cancun of Egypt. It's like a seaside town, super beautiful, not very spiritual. It's more for partying, going clubbing, going to the beach. And when we arrived there, the airport security stopped us, and this was what, and they started. This is like, we picked up our luggage, and then you go through like the last little check where you like put your bag into the X-ray machine, kind of like customs or like duty. What is it called? Like duty free. Make sure you declare something. Anyways, they pull us aside, and they ask us like, what are you doing in Egypt? What is this? What is that? And they pull out, I have this like sacred tobacco called rape. So if you don't know what that is, it's like, I have a whole video called like rape, like how my boy, I think it's called My Boyfriend's First Time, like what is rape or something. So you can watch that if you're wondering what rape is, or hape as some people call it. But basically they thought that this was heroin. And also I have like these crystals that I meditate with that are just normal crystals, like rocks. And they were like, what is this? And I was like, it's my crystals. And they were like, crystal meth? And then they kept saying to my friends in Arabic, like, does she have cocaine? Like, if you are helping her to like smuggle cocaine in, then like tell us and we'll make sure that you're okay and like you can get off, and like we'll just like take her to prison. And him and I were both like, no, we don't have drugs. What are you talking about? And they held us there for like 2 hours. I'm not joking. They went through like every single piece of our suitcases, our clothes. I have never had someone examine my things so closely. And I was doing my best to stay in my center, but I was also getting irritated because I was also just tired. It was like 11 p.m. at this point, and I hadn't eaten that much. And Brittnee, when she doesn't get enough food or sleep, she can get very cranky. But I was just staying calm. I also didn't understand a lot of what was happening because they were all talking in Arabic. And it was just really interesting to have that be like my first impression of going to Egypt, was to have someone like assume that I'm a drug dealer and like smuggling drugs into the country, when in reality I was there on like a spiritual side quest. And I was just being my authentic self. Like I was like trying to explain to them what rape was. I'm like, this is what you meditate with, and it helps you raise your vibration. And they're just like, what? Like this is not like they were having none of it, let's just put it that way. And they just like really wanted to know whether we had like cocaine. Apparently they kept thinking that I had cocaine on me, or that the rape was like heroin. And my friend had he is very close with, like, he knows everyone there, he's very connected in Egypt. And so he was like calling his friends in the police station, and they basically got us out. But another thing that I kind of realized about Egypt, this was my first impression, was that like, if they feel like they can get money out of you, they will kind of give you a hard time because they want to bribe. And this is me just being real. I'm not like knocking Egyptians or Egypt in general. This was just literally my first impression. And yeah, I didn't leave a very good taste in my mouth, but also I was just kind of, I think the best word is shell shocked. Like I was like, I didn't understand what was happening. It was all happening so fast. I was kind of just in shock, because it would be one thing if I actually was smuggling drugs and I was like, wow, they caught us, or, I'm trying to make sure that they don't understand what we're doing. But no, I didn't have anything. So that was one thing. And then we finally got out, and his friends came and picked us up. And the first couple days that we were there, we just like went to the beach, we went out dancing, all of these things I liked, but I was feeling itchy like, I was there for my spiritual side quest. And so for me, I felt like really itchy to get started on that. Like, I'm like, I live in Thailand normally. I can go out dancing whenever I want. I can go to the beach whenever I want. I didn't go to Egypt to go hang out on the beach. And it's like, it's really interesting when I get in this mode of like, I need to get on my mission. I need to do the thing that I'm here for. I can be very, very stubborn. So if you don't know me, I can be like really stubborn and really like, no, this is what I want. You know, girl knows what she wants. So anyways, we ended up renting a car and driving from Hurghada to Cairo. And I went with a couple friends. So it's me and three Egyptian men in a car. And everyone's super cool. We're having a great time. Something to know about Egypt is that it is so hot during the day that people have adjusted, I think naturally over, I don't know, the centuries, that everyone is awake at nighttime. So it's very normal to sleep, at like 6 a.m. and then sleep all day and wake up at 6 p.m. or 4 p.m. And then like your day starts like 4 p.m. and then you're awake through the night because it's so hot during the day that you don't really even want to be out. And also, people usually drive at nighttime just because, again, it's so hot during the day that it's just easier to drive. And in a lot of ways, it's a lot easier and to get through everything. So we ended up driving through the night to Cairo, and we got like a really beautiful Airbnb. If you saw on my Insta stories, I was like super happy with this place. It was in like a really nice part of town. And I was very excited to go to the pyramids the next day. So we get there probably at like 6 a.m., like when the sun is coming up. And something to know about me too is like, I really am someone who loves my sleep. Like there's people in the world who, can go like what I've noticed also about Egyptians is that they don't sleep that much. Like I don't understand. They say it's because of the sun or the energy there in Egypt where it just like, they don't need that much sleep. I find this fascinating. Something to ponder. I don't know if that's true, but what I did witness, I felt like I was like this explorer because most people go to Egypt like on tour groups. And my friends that I was traveling with are actually tour guides in real life. So they host tour groups, but they themselves, like when I was hanging out with them, we're just hanging out as friends, right? So I saw from the inside how Egyptians live and how they travel and how they exist. And what I noticed is they really don't sleep that much. So for me, I'm like, I need to sleep. So we got to Cairo and I was like, okay, I'm going to sleep and then we're going to wake up and we're going to go to the pyramids. And I slept for like 1 hour and then I got shaken awake by one of the guys, and he was just like, he's like, your friend, like the friend that I came to Egypt with, he's like, he's sick, like you need to come now, he's really, really sick. And I was like, okay. So I woke up and I went over to find him, and he was like so sick and screaming and saying that he feels like he's dying. And I'm over here like, okay, what do we do now? Because I have been in many situations where I've actually had friends die on me. I've had situations where, like we had a friend, Victor, who got run over by a cement truck in Thailand, and then we took him to the ER, and there was just like, he was on the verge of actually dying. So like I have many near-death experiences with friends, and I've had actually friends die in front of me. So for me, I take this very seriously. Also, I've had 1 hour of sleep, and I'm in a foreign country, and in a brand new city. So like all of these things felt very overwhelming for my nervous system. And at the same time, something to know about me is that like when there is a crisis, I go full channeling mode. I am fully locked into what needs to happen. Like, and I let my intuition guide me. And I asked my friend, I was like, do you need to go to the hospital? Like, what do you need right now? And he's like, yeah, I need to go to the hospital. And I was like, okay, let's go to the hospital. And the other two were like, no, it's fine. We don't need to go to the hospital. We can just like take care of him here. And he's like screaming and and just like I don't know why I never named him. My friend I came to Egypt with, his name's Jimmy. So so Jimmy is like screaming, and having like the most pain ever. And I just said, we are taking Jimmy to the airport, to the hospital right now. And so the rest of them are like, okay, fine. So we go to the hospital, and we are in the hospital. I'm not joking. 8 hours. We're in the emergency room, and we went to a private hospital, like, like a real, like, because in Egypt, the hospitals are not very good. Like, they'll tell you, like the Egyptians will tell you, the healthcare is not super great there. And we went to a private hospital, which is supposedly supposed to give you like better healthcare. But they they just gave him some fluids. They gave him some pain medication, and then they wanted to do x-rays, and they did some x-rays on him. And they were like, we have to give him like full surgery, emergency surgery right now. And we need to cut his whole stomach open. And his friends are telling me like, no, we don't need to do this. Let's just take him home. Like, he's actually had this before. He has something called Mediterranean fever. And this is like a normal thing that can be like misdiagnosed. And then Jimmy is like whispering to me in my ear, like, don't believe them. Don't take me home. I might die. Like, if you take me home. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Like, I just sat, I went outside for a minute and sat on the steps at the hospital. And I was just like, I have been in Egypt for 4 days. I don't know what's going on. I am with a bunch of people that I don't know very well. Even Jimmy, I only know him for 2 months. And what if he dies? What if he dies right now? Like, what am I supposed to do? And somehow this is on me, like, because everyone is like willing to listen to me for some reason. This is how it always is in my life, where everyone's looking to me to make a decision. Like, doctors are looking to me. His friends are looking to me. He's begging me, please don't take me home. So I would say about 5 hours in, his friends were like, no, we want to take him home. They even like got a wheelchair. They put him in the wheelchair. He's screaming. He's like, please don't take me home. If I go home, I'm going to die. And I start fighting with him. I said, no, we're not going to take him home. Let's do some more checks. Let's do some more like ultrasounds, x-rays, whatever. Let's like really figure out what this is. Because what if we bring him back to the Airbnb and he dies? Like, this is not something. I'm laughing about it now because everything's okay. But at the time it wasn't something to laugh about. It was like actually really serious. And I asked myself, even in the moment, I was like, why is this happening to me? Like, I came here to go to the pyramids, but I also believe that everything happens for a reason and that there's a lesson in all of this. And I mean, the only real lesson that I could take from this was that, like, just to stay in my center and to stay grounded and to follow my intuition. My intuition was, we want to do some more tests on him and then like make sure that he's actually okay. So they ran some more tests. And this is what I find really interesting is the hospital ran more tests, and then they told us again that they wanted to do like full stomach surgery where they cut him open. And something about it intuitively after they did that, I was like, no, I don't agree with this. And I don't know why, because logically, if I wanted to just follow the logic of like the 3D reality, it would be to be like, okay, the hospital ran some tests. Let's listen to what the doctors are saying. But something intuitively in me was like, no, actually, I don't believe this. We should take him home. So after 8 hours of being in the emergency room and him screaming and fighting the doctors because he's in so much pain, we ended up taking him home in a taxi to the Airbnb. And and we gave him some like stomach digestive like liquid, to kind of like clear things out of your stomach. And then he was fine within an hour. And I was just thinking like, oh my gosh, because this is what his friends had suggested to do that morning. So 8 hours earlier, they wanted to go just get him some like digestive fluid to like clear out his intestines. And then also, apparently there's some specific medication for Mediterranean fever that you can take. And Mediterranean fever is not something I'd ever heard of, but apparently in Egypt and in these countries, like Mediterranean countries, it's a pretty normal thing. So like if you go to the pharmacy, they know exactly what to give you. I didn't know any of this. And somehow I was the one that was put in charge of making decisions. So I was just like, it was all like, I just remember at one point being like, this is too much. Like, this is, I've hit my capacity, 8 hours, and also I'm running on 1 hour of sleep through this whole experience. So I just remember going out on the balcony and like meditating and putting my, my meditation music on, doing some rapé, and just being like, what am I meant to do here? Like, what is happening? And the download I got was just to keep staying in my center, to stay grounded, to keep following my intuition. Because after Jimmy got better, he came to me and he was like, I just want you to know that even though it was like a whole day in the hospital and it ended up being like better that I came home and like took this medication, he's like, the fact that you were like fighting for me and like willing to fight the doctors and fight my friends and make sure that I was okay, he was just like, this was super healing for me. Like, I've never had anyone. He's like, besides my own personal biological family, his family is very amazing. He's like, except for my own family, like I've never had anyone show up for me like that. And that was like a really big deal. And I was like, this is what I'm here for. Like, this is what friends are for, like of course I'm going to show up for you. And also, please don't do that again. I was like telling his psyche, like, please don't do that again. And I was asking him, like, why do you think this happened? Like, why do you think this happened? And he was just like, I don't know. And I was thinking, like, I think some version of him needed to die there in Egypt, in Cairo. Because after that, he had so much more energy. He was feeling so much better. He was a lot more clear and grounded. But I just need to speak from my own personal experience that it was scary. It was like, it really scared me. Like, I was just like, I'm in a foreign country. I'm with people I don't know very well. I don't understand what is happening, why this person is sick. And also it brought up a lot of trauma that I've had of like my dad being very sick when I was young, and like my dad had cancer when I was 7 and he was sick for like a year, and in and out of the hospital, and we didn't know if he was going to survive or not. And like no one knew what was really happening. And so many friends being sick and like just being in the hospital and like feeling like I had to manage everything and take care of everything when I didn't really understand what was going on. And there's a part of me that wonders, like, was that really even my responsibility? But, at the same time, I'm thinking, like, if I was in the hospital, I would hope that someone would show up for me like that would, like, fight for me. And I know that Jimmy would do the same. It's really funny, this trip, because him and I didn't really know each other that well when we started this trip. But I jokingly say that, like, I feel like we went through, like, such a deep immersive experience. Like, we went on this like 3-week psychedelic trip together, that really showed us a lot of ourselves and each other, and we grew so much as like friends, and our connection is so much deeper, and I'm really grateful for that. Something also I just wrote, I was like, as the journey was happening, I was writing down things in my journal just to remember to share with all of you, and also to remind myself. And something that's interesting about, so like some of these things are random, but they also kind of just show you what it's like in Egypt. Like when you're driving, so I've driven in many, many countries, but Egypt is a whole other thing. I found Egypt to be very similar to India in a lot of ways, like the energetic, the energy, and also the spirituality is very similar. And like, for instance, this is just going to show you, this is like the epitome of like how the Egyptians do things, is when you're driving on the road, there's actual lines in the road, like to separate the lanes, right? When you're driving in Egypt, those lines are just suggestions. Most people drive with the line in the middle of their car. So like they'll make new lanes throughout. It's hard to explain, but like, so say there's 3 lanes here, right? And they'll drive in between all of the lanes and like go in and out of all the cars. And then if you are someone who's driving, like Jimmy was driving for most of the trip, and he would like honk at the cars if they don't get out of the way. So in like Western cultures, you would drive And like if someone is, going slower than you, you would go around them. In Egyptian culture, you make your own lanes, and if someone doesn't get out of the way, you honk at them until they get out of the way. And for me, this was just like, what is going on? And I did end up driving towards the end of the trip, but for the beginning of the trip, I didn't drive because I wanted to, but the boys wouldn't let me because they were worried about the cops trying to bribe me if they saw me driving, even though I have a driver's license. They were worried about just the roads. The roads are terrible in Egypt. Like, I don't understand how they make such bad roads. like they're brand new paved roads, but they have so many bumps in them, and sometimes it looks like someone put concrete in the road and then someone immediately drove on the road right after. So there's like lines like inside of the road. It's hard to describe, but I'm just trying to describe to you what it's like in Egypt, and how like a lot of times when I was in Egypt, I felt like I was like in the upside down world. Like, it looks like the rest of the world, but everything is opposite. And in their reality, it all makes sense. And I'm just sitting there like, is anyone noticing how none of this makes sense to me? And sometimes I felt like as I'm sitting here talking about a lot of this, I feel like I just went through a dream. Like, I feel like I was in Egypt for 3 weeks, but it was all really just this beautiful dream. And, when I was talking to a friend yesterday, he was like, yeah, Egypt is very similar energetically to Thailand. And I was thinking, I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, in one way, I feel like Thailand, yes, it has kind of this chaotic energy. Like, Asia in general, is the way they think is very different than we do in the Western world. But the chaotic energy in Thailand, I feel like in my body, I can work with it and I can transmute it really easily into something that feels good for me. Like I can ride the wave of the energy and be like, because I've lived there for 10 years and I feel very spiritually connected to Thailand. In Egypt, I didn't feel like I was riding the waves. I felt like the waves were riding me. Like, it's like I wasn't like transmuting the energy a lot of times. I was just holding on, and I felt like I was getting like fucked, but like not in the most pleasant way. And that's kind of Egypt. But along the way, you learn a lot of things. Something else I found really interesting is that, I was there for 3 weeks, and most of the time in my reality, I was the only woman. And I want to just really break this down for you. I'm not talking about like just in my immediate reality with me and like the three men I was traveling with. I'm talking about like literally in the restaurants, in the streets, in wherever I was. And at first I didn't notice this because I was just like in my bubble with my friends. And then I started to look around, and I was like looking. I remember one time I wrote this down, like one time I was in a restaurant and I turned to Jimmy and I was like, do you notice that there's no other women in this restaurant? And he looked around and he's like, yeah, okay, what's wrong? And I was like, why are there no women here? There's like 50 to 60 people in this restaurant and there's no women. And then he started to explain to me that in Muslim culture, women, like once they get married, it's more acceptable for them to stay at home. So they stay at home. They usually have their women friends, their women family come over, like their family they hang out with each other at their home. And that it's really hard for me to understand in my brain, but what I was told was basically like there's something in their culture where it's actually like looked down upon for men to see a Muslim woman eating. Like for her to be an acceptable, woman in their culture, like within the Muslim religion, it's like not acceptable for her to be eating in public. And I was just like, what? Like the whole time I'm like, what? And so you have to understand, like me being me, which is like a very sensual, I'm a tall, sensual creature with red hair, and blue eyes. Like I stand out already in every country. And then in this situation, I was getting so much attention all the time that it felt like in my nervous system, it felt like really hard. It felt like I was under a lot of pressure and I didn't understand. And just like everywhere I went, everyone was watching me all the time. And also something else I learned is that like when you're in like this Muslim culture, as a woman, you don't go outside without like your husband. You don't go outside without your brother, like without a male counterpart. And this is how I was raised. And I really don't like, I had a lot of aversion to it. Like it's interesting. Like Egypt brought up a lot of stuff about how I was raised. But what I found really interesting is that in Egypt, in this culture, it didn't feel as oppressive as it felt protective. And the reason why I say that is because in Egypt, it actually can be very dangerous if you're a woman out alone. And I'm not saying that like you're going to get raped in the street or something like this. I'm saying it's very similar to Indian culture, where if you're a woman and you're out alone, it's almost like fresh bait, fresh meat. Like men will just look at you, they'll come up to you, they'll talk to you. It's almost like they're within their culture, because it's so unusual for a woman to be out alone. They'll look at you as if you're open to being scooped up. I don't know how else to describe this. And for me, this was really confusing because I've traveled to over 70, almost I think 80 countries now. And when I think about it, I guess like when I'm in these countries like India, I was with a boyfriend. When I was in Brazil, I was with my girlfriends and like a lot of friends that were Brazilian. So I was kind of always in this bubble. And when I was thinking of like other countries that are more aggressive towards women, like South Africa can be very unsafe for women. And I was there with a boyfriend. So it's interesting because I feel like in a lot of countries where maybe I would have encountered this energy of like men being like overtly aggressive, like in their energy, I was already kind of protected. And this is what I find interesting about this trip, is because for 99% of the trip, I was with Egyptian men, not just one. I was usually with multiple Egyptian men who were like from these cities, and I was with their families. Like I was like very deeply immersed and very protected. And then when I'm going to tell you way more about Egypt, but like I just want to say this last thing, or this thing to kind of show you this point, is that coming back from Egypt, we booked our flights wrong, me and Jimmy, and so I stayed for 2 days more than he did. And he even wanted to readjust his flight so we could go on the same day. And I was like, I'm fine. What are you talking about? I'm just gonna be in the same town that we've been in for a while. I have friends there now, like through him. And I was just I had rented like a really nice hotel on the beach. Like I was just gonna hang out. My plan was to make podcasts and just vibe and be by myself. But he was like, no, you don't know what it's like here by yourself, you know? And it's interesting because I did go into the main town and I was like walking around by myself, like shopping after he left Egypt. And this is when I started to feel that energy. I was like, whoa, like even like I was just standing in the road one time, like just looking up directions. And within the span of 10 seconds, I had like 20 men coming up to me and being like, hi, how are you? And like people honking from their cars, and just in general, this like energy of like, I want to fuck you. Like this it was like very sexual energy and very aggressive. And it wasn't respectful at all. That's what I found interesting, is like, I was like, oh, this is like, why? And when I talked to my Egyptian friends, they were just saying that within their culture, if you're a woman and you're out on your own, you're kind of, in their minds, already kind of a loose woman. You're already kind of like asking for it. And so for them to be with a man, to be with someone, it's almost like your bodyguard. This is what we were joking about most of the trip. They were like, yeah, we're like your security guard, Brittnee. Like, We're here to protect you and make sure you have a good trip in Egypt. And I was like, okay. I think I felt rebellious about it for a lot of the trip because me being my independent self, I wanted to be able to do it on my own. And then towards the end of the trip, I started to feel like, actually, this is really nice. Like, these are beautiful men that want to show up for me. And this was something I was sharing on Instagram, is like, I think for a lot of us women, we have this wound of men, you know, within our childhoods maybe, or within our cultures, or within our religions, of like men feeling, or men making us feel, or the culture making us feel, that women are less powerful than men. And when I was in Egypt, I started to understand that, at least within this culture, this was not the case. Like, my every single desire that I had on this trip was honored by the men around me. They just wanted to make sure that I was safe, that I was protected, that I was loved, that I had all of the things that I needed. And not just all the things I needed, but all the things I desired. Like, if I wanted to go to the pyramids, they're going to drive 6 hours through the night to make sure I get there. If I want to eat Egyptian desserts at 4 a.m., they're going to drive all over the city to make sure I get the specific desserts that I like. You know, like, if I want to stay in this one hotel, I remember at the end of the trip, I was so tired and I wanted to stay in this very specific hotel, and they didn't have beachfront, like, rooms available. And so Jimmy ended up driving with me around for 5 hours to make sure that I found the hotel that I wanted to stay in, even though what we ended up doing was going to the original hotel that he wanted to take me to. The first one that he showed me, but I was being stubborn and tired and cranky. And I was like, no, I want to pick, I'm going to drive, let's drive around. Da, da, da. And so what I'm saying is that, like, there are men out there where when you're in their energy, it feels like you're being controlled and managed and, like, suppressed. It feels like your energy is being, taken away. And then there are men out there where they just want to support you and provide for you and protect you and, like, amplify your energy and fulfill your desires. And where you are this vessel that is getting the downloads from spirit straight through your body into your womb, like, you know, letting your desires and your pleasure guide the way. And then they are taking those desires, and they are using their masculine energy to create a beautiful world around you where all of your desires are fulfilled. It's a very fine line between these two things, and it's hard sometimes to understand which one it is, especially if you've had a lot of trauma like I have had in the past, where men were taking advantage of me, or, you know, and I would say, like, this is mostly early childhood trauma, with my family and with my religion. But this is something where it's taken me a lot of my life to unpack and deprogram. And this trip in Egypt was I want to just say straight up, it felt like a smack in the face to a lot of these things where I thought I've healed this. Oh no, I haven't healed this. I thought I was more empowered in this way. Oh no, I wasn't. I haven't been. Or I thought I was really good at receiving from men. No, Brittnee, no. You can be better. You can be better. You can trust them more. And so when I look back on this trip, I feel like there's a lot of me that needed to die in Egypt. There's a lot of my programming that needed to die. There's a lot of my protective mechanisms that I have used in my life to control and to manipulate around me in order for me to, and I say that to manipulate and control, not because I wanted to get things out of people, but was because I didn't know any other way to create safety in my body in the past. And now that I have, it's really a good thing. I tried to go to Egypt 8 years ago. I tried to go to Egypt 5 years ago. I tried to go in 2018, and I tried to go in 2020. I had plane tickets both times to go there, and for different reasons it didn't work out. The last time was literally because COVID hit, and I was, like, on my way there, and they closed Egypt on my way there. And I'm so happy that I went now, because I have developed a felt sense in my body of safety, of groundedness, of knowing who I am, so that when I went there, I felt that these tests that I went through and these situations of extreme chaos, I haven't even shared, like, I have so many more to share with you, which I'll share in the next podcast. But, these situations, I don't think I would have been able to go through these situations and transmute them in the way where I was taking a positive outcome from them. I think I would have gone through these situations and then been more traumatized. And I think this is also what's really important to share with you, is that the universe, God, source, your higher self, your soul, whatever you want to call it, it's only going to give you the lessons and the experiences and the tests so that you have the opportunity to uplevel your life when you are ready for them. And if you're not ready for them and you're pushing and you want to grow, which like I'm very someone who's like, I'm like a growth junkie. I want to be the highest version of myself. I want the highest timeline. But you have to do it in a way where your body can acclimate, where your body can integrate the experience. Otherwise, it's going to be like what I was saying in the beginning, like episodic, where you're just like doing one crazy intense experience to another, where you're just taking, like, there's people I know who have had like 70 sessions of ayahuasca, and I'm looking at them like, are you crazy? Because I've had one session of ayahuasca and it took me 5 years to integrate that experience. So if you're going through life where you're just having these super intense experiences, but you're not taking the time to integrate, I don't understand the point, because you're going to keep having to go through the experiences over and over again because you're not learning the lessons that you need to learn. So if I were to take one thing out of this podcast that I want to share with you, this first one about Egypt, is that a part of me needed to die in Egypt. And the part of me that needed to die was the one who felt like I needed to be strong. And the part of me, the deeper parts of me, like there's a surface level version of Brittnee who's like, I'm in my pleasure and I'm receiving. And then there's the deeper versions of me who have had a really intense trauma around men and around allowing myself to receive from men, where this situation where I was in a foreign country in very extreme, dangerous situations where I needed to rely on the people around me. And I needed also, not just in the form of like danger, but I'm also talking about in like the deeper form of pleasure, of like really speaking my every desire and having the men around me like remember. Like I'll give you an example. I wanted to, there's this really specific ice cream in Egypt that I love. It's like cotton candy ice cream, but it's like their version of it, right? And I really loved it. And I remember saying to Jimmy, I really want this ice cream. And then I said it like a couple more times, and he turned to me and he said, you've already told me multiple times. I have it in my brain. I have been locking it in and I've been looking around for ice cream for you. You don't need to tell me anymore. I'm going to get you the ice cream. And I remember looking at him and being like, oh, okay, sorry. Because I'm so used to like having to lead on my own desires and having the men around me kind of forget about them unless I remind them multiple times. And he was like, nope, I remember this. I got you. We're here. And I remember like, I think I even wrote this down. Where is it? I remember talking to Jimmy about this and telling him like, thank you so much for showing up for me and like protecting me on this trip. And like, thank you for making me feel safe. Like you're taking such good care of me. And he was like, don't thank me. Like this is what you deserve. Like, this is like the bare minimum of what I should offer you as your friend, as someone who cares about you, as a man. He's like, how can I respect myself as a man if I'm not showing up for you in this way and like protecting you and providing for you in my home country, especially? And I was like, okay. I feel like this will always be locked into my memory. Like we were sitting by the water at nighttime with all of his friends. We're drinking tea. I think it's like 4 a.m. It's a normal thing to do in Egypt. Everyone's awake. Kids are swimming in the sea, and I'm just like, thank you so much for showing up for me. And he's like, don't say that. Like, and I'm like, what do you mean don't say that? Because for me, I have found that I guess it's been a programming that I've had where men need that. They need that appreciation and that gratefulness in order for them to keep showing up for me. It's almost like it's like a fuel for them. And what I noticed with him was that was how him showing up for me was a requirement of what made him feel like a good man. So he already got the fuel just by being able to do it. What he did appreciate was when I made very specific observations of how him showing up for me like made me feel. So I'll give you an example. Like, he really was such a good driver in Egypt, like especially for how aggressive it was. And I noticed this because, like, for me, when I did end up driving towards the end of the trip, I was being my like I can be an aggressive driver in countries where I understand things, but it takes me a little bit to get there. And so I was being kind of more of a defensive driver. And wow, it felt actually more unsafe. And I remember learning this in driver's ed, where like they were saying like offensive driving is better than defensive because you're creating the reality that you want around you, where I was kind of like more defensive, and so people were just like cutting me off and honking, and it felt very chaotic. And so I remember saying to him, like, you're such a good driver, like you really make me feel super safe, like I can sleep in the car, and that's a big deal for me if I can sleep like while someone's driving. And and these are the compliments and the things that actually he said like would give him fuel. Like I was like, you're taking such good care of me. Thank you. But he didn't want me to thank him for showing up. He just wanted to know that he was doing a good job in the way that he was taking care of me. So this is a very big, it seems like a small difference, but it's actually a very big one. Because like if the men in your life need you to thank them just for showing up, then I think there's something wrong with that. I think that is a requirement of like having, like if a man wants to be in my life, then he better be making my life better. He better be using his energy to make my life way better than it already is, because this is what I do as a woman. I use my energy to amplify and to nurture and to take care of the men in my life. So to appreciate them specifically for how they show up is a fuel that keeps it going for them, and it's kind of like this, it's like a status check. Like they want to show up for you and take care of you, and you're saying like, this specifically is what's working. This is what's working. Thank you so much. This makes me feel good. This is what's not working. Because if their goal is to show up for you and to protect and provide for you and use that energy to make your life better, then they want some feedback that it's working and that they're doing the right thing, in the sense of that this is specifically helping you. But to appreciate them for just being there, it's like, no, they want to be there. Let them be there. Let them take up positive space in your life. And again, this is what I was saying about Egypt, is I feel that I understood a lot of this intellectually, but this trip was like a huge situation where I was able to embody a lot of the teachings that I share with you on a level that I haven't touched yet. And it was very humbling for me. And as you can see in my energy now, I feel a lot more grounded in my body and a lot more in my power as a woman, because I've integrated this experience and like allowed it to upgrade me. I feel so, it's hard to put into words how I feel. I just feel so much more of like a woman. Is that a funny thing to say? I feel like it's a funny thing to say, but I don't know. Can you feel it? Like I feel more grounded as a woman in my body, and more like, yeah, this is what I deserve and this is what I will receive. I think that's all I'm going to share for now. I'm going to share a lot more on the next podcast about my actual spiritual things that happened in Egypt, because let me tell you, there was a lot of magic in Egypt, and I'm very excited to share all of it with you. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I will see you in the next podcast.